What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to a full day of eating that I haven't done in a very long time.
Chris Bumstead is awesome. Zero bad things to say about that guy. And I'm going to review his diet because he is great at what he does. Not because I want to poke holes in it. The guy is in better shape than I am. But I understand nutrition, I understand the science, I understand the biochemistry. And by popular demand, I'm going to do more of these videos that kind of break down people's diets. So let's take a look at what Chris Bumstead, Mr. Olympia Classic, is eating. Let's break it down.
Today I got 2 pieces of filet mignon in here. I'm eating bougie, normally Poppy, the only one who eats this good in this house. But I got some filet on some grass-fed butter. And then I got 100 grams of oats right here. This is probably like 100 to 120 grams of steak. I haven't actually weighed it out yet, but I don't like having too much red meat in a day. So I'm gonna have a half meal of this plus a protein shake, and then I'm gonna have 100 grams of oatmeal with some fruit maybe, but almond butter for sure. And I'll show you the final product.
First of all, I know that Chris Bumstead watches my channel. I know that he's a subscriber, and maybe he picks up some things here or there. But the thing is the guy has always had a pretty solid diet. I've always appreciated what he's done. But I want to highlight the good things here. Filet. He's going for a lean steak in the morning. Okay, now I'm all for a fatty cut of meat, but what I like is that he's opting for something that's a little bit leaner where he can control the calories a little bit more. So even though he's somewhat off season, being able to control those calories and not have a mystery amount of calories or mystery amount of fat coming in from let's say a ribeye that might have just a completely random amount of fat depending on the cut that you get of the specific piece, right? He's going for a filet, which is lean. Now, the other thing that's a very important piece I want to highlight, he's cooking in butter. I appreciate the fact that he's cooking in butter because the butter's not going to oxidize. It's a stable fat, right? So people might cook in vegetable oil or they'll even cook in olive oil, which is okay to a certain degree. But if he's searing the steak, he's cooking at a relatively high temperature, then cooking in butter is going to be a better way to do it. It's going to be more stable. The only thing that I might suggest, say, hey, you want to take it up a little bit of a notch and just get a little more stable fat in, would be going for the ghee, right? Because the ghee isn't going to have the milk solids. So what happens a lot of times with butter when you cook with it is the butter itself will burn. So you end up kind of charring. I like the flavor of steak cooked in butter, so I'm not discounting that at all. But that's probably the only potential tweak that I could make there. I love the direction he's going with that. The oatmeal, he's going for a decent amount of oatmeal. Now, again, people are going to say, I don't like oatmeal this, oatmeal that. You cannot deny the guy has an incredible physique, and whatever is working for him is definitely working. The thing with the oats, and I've said this in other videos, if you tried making them as overnight oats, you might find a little bit more control of a blood sugar response. So again, this guy is trying to build a lot of muscle and carry as much mass as possible. So he's probably not super concerned with the quality of the oats. But I usually caution people like, hey, don't go for like the Quaker instant oats where you're having a bunch of added sugar. Also, when they're pulverized and they're sort of in that instantized form, you have more of a glycemic response with it. So just be aware of that. And then of course, he said he's adding some almond butter into the mix. I think the oats are going to be a low glycemic enough carbohydrate that it's not a big deal to combine it with a higher amount of fats, right? My usual rule of thumb with breakfast when I'm trying to stay lean is I keep the carbohydrates allocated to a little bit later in the day. So my breakfast is usually higher fat, higher protein, and then I taper the fats and increase the carbs as the day goes on. And there's some evidence to suggest that that's slightly optimal for circadian cues, but again, what's working for him is working for him.
Part 3 of breakfast is protein shake. Dark chocolate, still the goat flavor. Like having chocolate milk in the morning.
Okay, adding a protein shake along with it. I can see the reasoning behind that. Obviously, he's basically trying to protein buffer his breakfast. He's trying to get good nutrient quality from his actual breakfast, some satiety, okay, but then he's adding a protein shake on top of that to spike protein a little bit more. So he's going for a relatively clean, lean protein. That's simple. A lot of people start their day off with just a whey protein shake, but what he's doing, he's getting a good nutrient profile with oatmeal, he's getting a good nutrient profile with the butter, and definitely with the red meat, which I consider to be pretty much a multivitamin. And then he's spiking the protein a little bit more. So he's not relying on the protein shake for nutrient density or for quality. He's relying on it for an extra bolus of protein. Now, we all know that relatively new study I talk about all the time, we can digest a lot of protein, and we can take it in at one sitting. It just takes a little time to digest. So I don't know when he's going to eat his next meal, but again, so far, this breakfast is like as Thomas approved as it gets. I love it. Before we get into his next meal, I put a link down below for another way that I start my day, and that's with LMNT electrolytes. That is a link for a free sample variety pack. So that gets you a free variety pack of different flavors of their LMNT electrolytes with any purchase. So you go and you try their new sparkling flavors. Let's say you want to try one of their new sparkling grapefruit salt flavors. So you buy that. Well, then you get a free sample variety pack. All you have to do is use that link down below, drinklmnt.com/Thomas, and that gets you that free variety pack. So again, that link is in the top line of the description. LMNT is the way that I typically start my day, whether I'm fasting or not fasting. I add that into the mix. Sometimes a half a pack, sometimes a half a can, sometimes a full pack or a can, depending on what my workout is looking like, or if I'm fasting and I want to kind of get more salt in and feel more satiated. So a great way to control your appetite, but also a great way if you're active to just start the day. So that link is down below and it gets you that free sample variety pack, drinklmnt.com/Thomas.
I've also been putting some collagen in it. Hani sent me this collagen. It's got aquamin, vitamin D, and hydration, and a bunch of good stuff, as well as collagen. So
okay, relatively new study also demonstrated that adding collagen to your whey protein enhances connective protein synthesis. So a guy like Chris that is training hard, one of the limiting factors to training like that could be tendon tensile strength. And what I mean by that is a lot of times, I'm not talking about Chris's case specifically, but if people put on a lot of muscle mass really quick, let's say, for example, a younger athlete that maybe is on PEDs, right? They put on a bunch of mass, but they don't exactly get the tendon tensile strength or connective tissue strong. It can put them at risk of injury, right? That's why lifting heavy is actually quite important just for tendon strength in the first place, because it drives connective tissue protein synthesis. We do want to drive that up. Now, combining whey with collagen actually spikes that leucine level, spikes that muscle protein synthesis, but also the glycine will spike connective protein synthesis, whereas ordinarily by itself, whey protein can actually bring glycine levels down, probably because of the insulin spike that draws the aminos in. Now, with that, I really appreciate what he's doing here. He's probably doing it because he's getting, like I said, it has aquamin, which is a great hydrator. It's got some other things, it's got vitamin D. So I'm all for what he's doing there. But I just thought I'd mention that combining whey and collagen is actually quite a cool thing to do.
banana, and then I add blueberries into the oats as I don't like to eat them.
Okay, just gonna touch on this really quick. One of the most antioxidant rich fruits and one of my staples for breakfast as well, going to be the blueberries. Now the bananas, not a ton of nutrient value there. Maybe it's just carb spiking a little bit, getting a few extra carbs. If it was me, I'd probably say, okay, where could I add some more berries and get those carbs in? I'm all about the polyphenols, all about the antioxidants, but I don't think that's really his goal there. But either way, another thing to note, the frozen blueberries a lot of times are less oxidized than the fresh ones. So don't be afraid of frozen blueberries like he's choosing here. Okay, a lot of times they're frozen right after getting picked, which means that they have less chance of oxidizing. They have less chance of going bad. So that by the time you pull them out of the freezer, they're almost just as good as when they were picked.
So this comes out to just under 1,000 calories and like 80 grams of protein.
All right, that's a big breakfast, but it's kind of funny because when you look at the actual volume of food, it doesn't look like that much. But I want you to take note that this is what 1,000 calories can look like, right? Oatmeal with some almond butter, a little bit of fruit, steak, and a protein shake, and you're at 1,000 calories. So people get confused as to like why they're not losing weight. When in reality, if you just tracked a little bit, and I'm not saying that calories are the end all be all, but I am saying that a lot of us have a distorted view of how much food we actually consume, especially when fat's added to the mix, right? The almond butter, the butter added to the steak, not saying he's doing anything wrong. What he's doing is awesome for his goals, but for fat loss, maybe that's not what you want to be doing. Maybe you want to trim back the almond butter. Maybe you want to trim back the actual butter.
So not a bad way to break the old fast.
I love that he even mentioned that. He recognizes that overnight is still a fast, right? Like it's nonchalant, but he recognizes that, right? You're breaking a fast. And I know that Chris is someone that will pay attention to the timing between meals, especially that timing between dinner and breakfast, because that is a quick way to be able to control calories and not really lose muscle if your protein needs are met. Okay, you go 10 hours, okay, try pushing it 12 hours. You don't have to go 16 or 18 hours like a typical fast, but try like a 12-hour eating window.
I'm eating meal number 2 right now. Made this right before I left. Well, Courtney made the food actually, but it's yellow Japanese sweet potato. I don't know what type of sweet potato that is, some type of sweet potato. It's like 250 grams of that after being cooked. Literally just bake it in the skin, and then you peel the skin off and it becomes like mash pretty much. It's super easy to eat. So I got that. Then I have 225 grams of 93% ground turkey. So I believe this is right around 700 calories. This is all just in random apps that I have no idea if they're correct or not. So
I'm going to pause them at the ground turkey. Ground turkey tastes like a wet dog smells. Have you ever washed a dog? Or, you know, when a dog goes outside and it gets wet and then it comes in, there's a smell. There's a weird smell, and it's wet dog smell. Ground turkey tastes like wet dog smells. And the 93% seems to be one of the worst. I know ground turkey is inexpensive and easy to get, but I also know Chris is probably making enough money where he can probably elevate that a little bit. If ground turkey grosses you out, I encourage you to get on the ground chicken train. Okay? Just saying this because I don't like to eat wet dog.
But within calories and everything, you really just got to learn by yourself. You got to eat consistently the same thing. And if you're getting fat, you should probably eat less fat or less carb.
Simple. Actually, it is that simple sometimes. Because the calorie counting thing can be kind of frustrating, right? It's all over the place. This is what Dr. Tommy Woodhead taught me. He's like, you eat as much as you can until you gain about a pound of fat. Now, you have to be in touch with your body to realize that. If you have a lot of extra body fat on you, it might be hard to determine what a pound of fat is. But I'll use myself as an example. I'm relatively lean. If I put on a pound, I'll notice it. So if I'm trying to find where my sweet spot is, I will increase calories until I notice I'm a little bit softer, and then I reel it back. And exactly what he said, you trim back the fat or you trim back the carbs. And the thing is a lot of the stuff that I teach, although it's rooted in foundational health and evidence, I take a lot of plays out of the bodybuilding books because these guys, even though they're not scientists, they spend and dedicate their lives to this. So Chris knows that if he pulls a little bit of fat out, he'll suck up and he'll start getting leaner. And he mentions that. You got to figure it out, right? Some of us, if you pull the carbs back, are going to respond really well. Some of them, if you pull the fat out, they're going to respond really, really well. You got to play with it.
So same foods every day. I typically eat the same protein almost all year round, and then I up my carbs and my fats. So if I get my fats really high in the off season, I have no appetite and I can't eat. So I really have to balance some things, and it's all trial and error. There's no secret to it. It's just figuring out what works best for you, what's going to digest for you, what can you eat more.
Eating similar foods every day. When I would ever write diet plans for people, which I really don't do anymore, but that's exactly what I do. I was like, hey, we didn't keep the variables out, right? So what he does when he's getting down to the T like this, he's keeping the variables out of the equation, right? So if he eats the same exact foods or close to it, it's so easy for him to say, okay, all I gotta do is add some fat, or all I gotta do is pull fats back. But if I keep protein about the same, or I get to a point where I need to decrease fat, I can always compensate with protein, right? That's usually what I would suggest people do. If they're eating something similar and they're like, I'm robotic, I can eat whatever I want, great, okay, then do that. Now you can pull the fats back, but a lot of times if you pull the fats back, you're pulling back 9 calories per gram. Pretty aggressive lever on calories really quick. Offset that by increasing protein a tiny bit. Okay, protein generally isn't gonna make you fat unless you're going way overboard. So if you drop fat by 500 calories, increase your protein by 250 calories. So the amount of calories you pull back out of fat compensate with half the amount of calories from protein. So 500 calories of fat gone, increase protein 250 calories. Okay, if you pull carbs out, you want to compensate half the same, right? So if you pull out 500 calories of carbs, add 250 calories worth of protein. That's my take. It's always worked really well, and for people that I've kind of worked through these things. Now, what he mentioned that he's eating here is he's eating sweet potato that he's taken the skin off and made a mash. I love that stuff. Those Japanese sweet potatoes that are white on the inside are so delicious. Most of the antioxidants are in the skin though. It's not a matter of the glycemic index, it's a matter of the antioxidant profile. Go for like the Stokes, the purple sweet potatoes, or the other kinds of Japanese sweet potatoes that are more purple on the inside. The orange ones are great, but those are more rich in beta carotene and less in the antioxidants versus the carotenoids. So the purple ones have tons of anthocyanins, like blueberries. Similar macronutrient ratio, but you're getting more micronutrients. Only suggestion that I would really make there, other than switching out the wet dog for some maybe ground chicken instead.
All right, so just finished up the leg workout. These heated workouts are starting to get the best of me already. I need to lose some weight.
Actually, you know, it's interesting. I noticed real quick before he even gets into this is he didn't talk about a pre-workout meal, right? He ate his meal and then a couple hours later he trained, right? There is newer evidence, and I think a lot of us kind of do this, that pre-workout carbohydrates do not really do anything. Okay, in fact, there's other newer evidence that suggests just swishing carbohydrates in your mouth can make you have a better performance, right? There's like something to do with the receptors and actually getting that sensation. So it's leading us to believe that maybe Dr. Tim Noakes' work was kind of right. Like, carbohydrates are important in certain ways, but they're also not required. They're not required for performance. Point is they're not required to be consumed right before a workout. Like, it's negligible impact on your workout performance, and considering that we still get the performance improvement even if we switch the carbohydrate solution in our mouth, tells us that a lot of it could just be somewhat psychological or central governor related. Who knows? That's what Dr. Tim Noakes talks about. But I appreciate this because a lot of bodybuilders still think that, okay, you need to have these carbs pre-workout. And if that helps you train harder, no issues, like no malice towards that at all. But I appreciate that he takes a logical look. He eats, he digests, and then he goes and trains. So now we're talking about his post-workout.
But post-workout, I shake immediately after I train now. So I've been doing, again, dark chocolate protein, and got some Mahani's carbs in here. I typically do 2 scoops of these. Depending on the workout, 25 grams of carbs, pretty standard for most ground powders. So I do 50 grams of carbs from powder post-workout. I do 2 scoops of this in here, so 52 grams of protein, 50 grams of carbs post-workout. Drink this on the way home, and then go and eat. And I've also noticed, like, if I'm, especially when it's this hot outside and I'm like high stress, like breathing, sweating like crazy, if I go home and I either jump in the cold plunge or have a cold shower, it like chills out my nervous system a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get to the whole cold plunging thing in just a second, because I think there's some merit to that for the nervous system. But his post-workout is simple. It's not anything super complex, right? 52 grams of protein from whey protein isolate, digests fast, and then he uses a carbohydrate powder. I'm a fan of certain carbohydrate powders. The thing is with them is, you're not gonna just use them for fuel, right? He's doing what's called backloading. He is replenishing glycogen from his training, right? Now, this being said, make it known that the timing of your carbohydrates, based on what we learned in February 2024 in that paper, it really doesn't matter. But I think at his level, it might, right? For most people, it probably doesn't matter what time of day you have the carbohydrates, as long as they're coming in. The only time having them post-workout would matter is if you were very depleted, because when you're depleted, the signaling is a little bit stronger to bring those carbs in. So if you're low carb, or you're training in a very depleted state, or you're fasted going into your training, then carbohydrates might restore glycogen at a slightly faster rate. There might be more glycogen synthesis from the carbohydrates you consume if you consume them right after a workout. In his state of having plenty of fuel in his system, it's probably not making a tremendous difference having 52 or 50 grams of carbs coming in, but he also knows what he's doing and it's working for him. So we cannot rain on that. I'm just making it known that you don't have to do that. Some of these carbohydrate powders are actually quite good. The way they digest slow, they use specific kind of mazes and whatnot where they're digesting slow, but getting into your bloodstream fast. And sometimes there's different ones, there are all kinds of different ones. So I'm not opposed to carbohydrate powders because they can be a strategic tool if timing is part of your routine.
All right, so next meal is going to be pasta. Again, it's pasta, not pasta, and ground turkey. This is probably the GOAT meal for the off season of being able to eat a lot. I have a really big fear and suspicion that I've been eating so much rice that I'm beginning to build the food intolerance. So I'm actually doing a food intolerance test tomorrow.
That can happen. And like he says, it's a suspicion. We don't see evidence to really back that up, but after talking with tons of people about this and myself experiencing things, I think you can build up intolerances to things if you overconsume them, especially at the rate that he is. So it's like, maybe you're just developing so much efficiency to it. Who knows, that it had less of an impact. Maybe you're passing it through easier. That I personally believe that can happen. I know it sounds far-fetched, but if you eat the same thing over and over, maybe you do develop a little bit of a response to it where your body says, hey, like too much of this coming in, let's kind of pump the brakes. Like, it's been the theory behind a lot of our wheat and gluten consumption in the United States is, do we consume so much wheat that we're starting to actually develop an antibody response to it? So there's something to be said there. And I think switching up your carbohydrate sources occasionally in like 2-week blocks is probably a good plan. Anyway, he talks about pasta, not pasta, and ground turkey. Let's see what else he's got.
So I'm having 3 of these things of pasta imported directly from Italy, which equals about maybe 110 grams of carbs. And then I have 250 grams of ground turkey right here. I gotta stack in the food right now because I'm a little bit behind. So I'm boiling that right now, and then I'm microwaving this.
I like that he imports his pasta from Italy. That is pretty important because they're using a red wheat. Okay, so the gliadin content and the actual subsequent gluten content is lower in European wheat. That's why when people do go over to Europe, sometimes they can eat gluten and not have as much of an issue. I'm not suggesting that anyone that has gluten intolerances or especially celiac imports their pasta from Europe and eats it and won't have a problem. But I am suggesting that he's making a conscious effort there. So Chris is unique because he does take a little bit more of a nutrient density spin on things. Like he really does look at this stuff, which is unusual in the fitness, even bodybuilding world. Like you see a lot of people who just comes down to macros, but then you see some people like Chris that are just dialed. Like he listens to his body. No wonder he's the best in the world at what he does, right? So no matter what frame that you're looking at things, like in his world, he is the best. And he listens to his body and he doesn't ignore sometimes things that might seem a little woo-woo witch doctory. Some people would say, oh, you don't need to import your wheat from Italy, you don't import pasta from Italy. He feels better that way. And he's probably more in tune with his body than 20 people in the regular world combined.
All right, so here's the final product. Nice hefty little bowl. So this meal, I didn't realize how big it was. It's 1,336 calories. It's a pretty hefty meal.
That's a lot of calories, especially for evening time. So he knows that, so I don't need to critique it and rain on his parade. I think he realizes that some of his calories stacked a lot earlier would have been better. That's a lot of calories in the evening time. Might affect your sleep. Typically, you want to go higher calorie in the morning and kind of taper as the day goes on. And I think I've seen some stuff that he's talked about that before. So he's aware of that because especially in his case, like sleep is everything. So you do what you can to optimize sleep. At a 1,300 calorie dinner might affect his sleep. But I do also like that he mentioned he's adding olive oil. Like he's using good fats. He's aware of this stuff.
Sometimes my day is just too busy to get, I definitely can't get 6 meals in, but even getting 5 in sometimes is a little bit hectic. So if I jam some big meals in, it can slow me down, but it's also just a reality of my life. Sometimes I can't eat 5 times in a day. So if I have a snack at the end of the night or whatever, I'm still gonna be at 4,000 calories by the end of the day. So something like this really helps me, especially post-workout with a carb that I personally can digest very well, like pasta. So if it's potatoes, rice, or whatever it is for you, if you have that meal post-workout and it doesn't fill you up too much, you can eat one more time before bed, you are golden.
Okay, he's got a really good strategy there. And I like that he's not obsessed with the 6 meals a day. Now, do we need 6 meals a day, even if you're bodybuilding? No, probably not. Like Stan Efferding has talked. Stan Efferding, if you don't know him, very well known in the bodybuilding, fitness, powerlifting community. Yeah, he really only eats a few meals per day. I mean, Chris is probably hanging on to some other belief systems as far as like the 6 meals a day thing is concerned, but he talks about how sometimes he just gets 4. And you know what? The rate of digestion, if you consolidate meals, you're gonna be fine. Like mixed meals and consolidated higher calorie counts to a certain point, especially higher protein counts, which is the most important thing, you can consolidate. There is a lot of evidence now to suggest mixed meals digest slower. So if you have a larger mixed meal with a larger amount of carbs, fat, protein all in one, it's fine if you're not eating 6 meals a day and you only eat 4, you only eat 3, because those meals, if they're bigger, are gonna digest over the appropriate amount of time. The one thing that I could probably say I would do different is I would probably have added some of the actual protein, ground turkey, ground chicken, ground beef, or whatever during the post-workout meal. I would have the shake in like a mixed protein meal of a shake along with some meat and maybe some carbs at that rate, or his carb solution, and then have a slightly smaller dinner and done it off that way. Almost made dinner part of my post-workout. Not always conducive if you have a family though. Another thing that he mentioned earlier is he doesn't eat red meat during the day because it slows him down. He just mentions, I don't feel good when I eat red meat during the day. A lot of times I'm that way too, so I usually do have my red meat at night. That being said, red meat is so nutritious and has so much nutrient density to it. If I do have it, it's going to be in the form of ground beef where it's easier to digest.
I also got some pills here. I got some revived glucose and some betaine HCl. Right, babe?
Good job, baby.
Stand by those. Help me with my digestion a little bit, trying to ease the bloating. I've also been taking some aloe vera juice as of this morning for the first time ever. So hopefully that starts working. No drinking water with your meal. Big mistake in the off season. Sometimes really hard to eat food, but you're not supposed to drink water with your food.
He's got a point there. It's about enzyme dilution. So when you drink water with a meal, it can dilute some of the enzymes, make it harder to digest. He also doesn't want to fill himself up. He wants to finish his meals because off season he's trying to put on size, right? So with this, it makes sense. don't drink water with your meals, wait a little bit or drink some water half an hour before. It can dilute enzymes. It could affect digestion. I don't know if it's going to actually affect absorption, however. Now I want to touch on the supplements that he talks about for a second. Betaine, trimethylglycine, good stuff. I don't know if it's helping him with his blood sugar too much. It might, but it's also really good just for mitochondrial health and really good for nicotinamide mononucleotide function, for NAD, for longevity. It's a good supplement to take.
All right, so this is gonna be the last meal of the day. I typically will have a shake, but everything was really delayed today because earlier today I would just push all my meals and everything back. Courtney ordered these. We have salmon sometimes at night, but Courtney ordered these different, I don't know, they're from Wild Sockeye Alaskan salmon burgers.
Yes.
Whatever they're called. And so we got that, 2 of those, which is like 10 ounces, half an avocado, a tablespoon of olive oil, 220 grams of rice, and then some arugula and Courtney's
like a dressing, like a little salad.
Dressing, yeah.
Need some fiber.
Okay, so wild sockeye, that would be my go-to salmon source. The farm stuff is kind of, definitely wouldn't like electively have that unless, I don't know, it's almost better just to have chicken at that rate. I don't think you're getting a ton of benefit from farm salmon anymore. But the wild sockeye actually has the astaxanthin in it. It's good. It has high fat content. It's actually relatively lean. And then he's basically keeping this meal very low carb. So he's got like some arugula. Arugula I would have over spinach or really any other green. Low oxalate content, easier to digest. So he's really got a good little setup here. Now he does mention that ordinarily he would just have a shake as the last meal. That's kind of what I would do too. If I was adding size and trying to add protein in, I probably wouldn't add another meal that would weigh on my digestion. I'd probably take either a scoop or a scoop and a half of whey protein, either by itself with a tiny bit of milk, or maybe just mixed into like an unflavored, unsweetened Greek yogurt to boost the protein a little bit more and get a little bit of that probiotic effect.
Because I also don't like going to bed with my stomach being super full. Then I sleep like and it ruins everything, and sleep is crucial.
Just saying, that is the most important piece. If you get all your macros in, but you sleep like crap, what is the trade-off?
The total calories were 4,551 calories. The protein was 344 grams of protein in that day, and it was a bit of a day, but I still got my food in by jamming into bigger meals and do what I could do. So saying this all right now in front of my coach, just judging me, being like, what, you missed a meal? Like,
yeah, I was like, ooh, it sounds a little light on the calories.
Yeah, but I missed the whole meal, I still got that in there.
He was light on the calories for a guy his size. By the way, Hanny Rambod is an awesome coach. He's a good dude, and he's the one that's working with CBUM here. He's got a good reputation. I actually really like his approach on things. I don't know him personally, but I've seen what he's written up. I've seen his stuff. We see eye to eye on quite a bit of stuff. I appreciate that guy. Additionally, it's funny that he says that he's a little short on calories. Yeah, he is, but he also exceeded 300 grams of protein. So he's probably not at risk for catabolizing or breaking down muscle at that rate. He just might not be putting on as much as he would have liked. Now, given where we are in the year at the time of filming, he's probably about to flip it to start cutting. So I don't think it's the end of the world unless he's trying to like squeak on every last little bit of poundage that he can. So I'm gonna end the video here and recap just a little bit. He has got it going on. He's got his breakfast consolidated with higher fat, slightly moderate carb, and then he kind of peaks with his carbs later in the day, which is exactly what I would really suggest. He's not worried about the timing of his carbohydrate consumption with the exception of his post-workout. However, he trains like an animal, so maybe he was pretty depleted. All in all, he's paying attention to nutrient quality, he's paying attention to food intolerances, and I think from a bulking perspective, CBUM is probably the person to follow when it comes down to nutrition. From putting on size and doing it with a conscious mindset for your health, I really appreciate what this guy puts out as a message to people that follow him. So as always, keep it locked here on my channel. I'll see you tomorrow.